The following interview is a Blanchard community production. This is Leadership Unfiltered, Community Conversations, an interview series dedicated to diving into leadership topics relevant to today's world. I'm your host, Sarah Hempel, a community builder, relationship guru, and passionate difference maker. Our aim is to hold a safe space for difficult conversations as we shed light on leadership around the world. So, join us as we dive into Leadership Unfiltered. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our third episode of Leadership Unfiltered Community Conversations. I'm Sarah. My pronouns are she, her. And this month, we're going to talk about celebrating Hispanic heritage. Today, I'm super excited to be joined by Myra Roldan, founder and CEO of UnDesto AI. She is on a mission to help businesses navigate the fast evolving world of AI. She's got over 12 years in the field, and her passion lies in transforming how organizations leverage AI to drive innovation, boost efficiency, and really stay ahead of the competition. I am so excited to have you with me today, Myra. Hello.
Hello. I love that you rolled your R with the Roldan.
I worked really hard at that, so thank you. So we just wrapped up Hispanic Heritage Month here in the United States. It's celebrated from September 15th to October 15th. And I'm really excited to have you here to kind of dive in and learn a little bit more about Hispanic heritage and just particularly your journey. So to start us off, can you share with me a little bit about your personal journey to becoming a leader and maybe how your upbringing, like your cultural identity, has helped to shape who you are today? It's kind of a big
Yeah,
question.
it's a loaded question, right? So, um, I think every month is Hispanic Heritage Month in the minds of Hispanics.
Yes, I love that. Yeah.
Celebrated every day. So I'm originally from Puerto Rico. It's a tiny little 100 square mile island in the Caribbean. And what's interesting, and I'm glad for, you referring to me as Hispanic because we had this conversation prior around like the whole Latinx. Um, I'm not Latin,
Right.
right? It is a label that's been put on, and then Latinx has been like a way to capture all the other like Hispanic origins, and so
Mhm.
it kind of is diminishing, right? In
Right.
in a way. And it's all because we like to put labels on people.
Right. You have to fit the
Um,
box.
yeah, you have to fit in the little box. And so, anyone from the Caribbean, like Dominican Republic, Cuba, Puerto Rico, we are actually Hispanic. Um, and so, which is very different than Latin, which is from Latin America,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Uh, and so, growing up in Puerto Rico, like, I don't know, we have a very proud culture. And it is, I didn't learn about American history, I'll tell you that. I learned about Puerto Rican history
Hmm.
and like Spaniard history and Dutch history and all the people that try to colonize us.
Right.
Um, and so one of the interesting things is that Puerto Rico is a commonwealth of the United States. We're not a state. We are a property, and the United States gained control of Puerto Rico during the Spanish-American War, where power was transferred from Spain to the U.S. And I told you the story previously where I don't know if you see, can you pass me that flag really quick? We fly, watch my wheel. We fly our flags everywhere we go. And I just want
Yeah.
to show you because there's like a flag in my office, right? We're
Yeah.
very proud of this little flag. And we fly it everywhere. And you'll see Puerto Ricans, you can spot a Puerto Rican from a mile away because we fly our flag. We wear it, we put it in our cars.
Yeah.
It's because at one point it was illegal for us to fly our flag.
Hmm.
And the US made it illegal for us. We were only supposed to fly the US flag. And Puerto Ricans on the island were like, screw that.
Hmm.
And everyone started flying their flag. Um, and so it's just, I grew up in a country where we are proud of who we are. We also don't back down,
Hmm.
right? And we are we are taught to fight for a right.
Hmm.
And so from a leadership perspective, I think that's really molded me.
Hmm. Yeah.
Plus, I was raised by an older generation. So I was raised by my grandparents, and my grandfather died at like 100 and I think he might have been like 113.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so I was raised by people who had a different view of the world,
Hmm.
um, and who had been through some struggles, right?
Hmm.
Um, that did shape me completely because my grandfather was like, you're going to have to work harder than anyone to be able to accomplish anything if
Hmm.
you want to get anywhere in life. And that has always been a driver for me.
Right. Oh, he would be so proud of you and everything you've become, all you've accomplished. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say like, being Hispanic, being from Puerto Rico, um, I have a great respect for diverse cultures
Hmm.
and listening to diverse perspectives, and giving everyone a voice and ensuring that I'm creating an environment that is um, provides opportunity, right? And that doesn't break other people down.
Yeah. No, that. So we kind of mentioned it with that whole box,
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
got to fit in the box, right? According to society, and I think that oftentimes society tends to try and erase someone's cultural background by like grouping them, like you said, Latinx, by race or by ethnicity. And my former profession, I was an elementary teacher, and I remember that kids or families would be like, no, no, you have to speak English. You can't speak in Spanish right now. And so I've experienced witnessing that. And I think people should really be able to be proud of who they are, where they've come from, what they've accomplished. So let's dive into that a little bit. Why do you believe, why do you want to encourage people to really be proud of who they are and where they've come from?
Yeah. So let me just so I did 1 year of school here in the States my senior year.
Mhm.
And I went to an Irish American high school. And I learned that my English wasn't very good looking back then. Had a heavy accent.
Mhm.
It came from the island.
Yeah.
And they associated that with me not being smart enough.
Oh.
And so they put me through a battery of tests, which I aced all of the tests, because they wanted to like hold me back a year.
Mhm.
And then they decided that the best way to help to fix me was to put me through speech therapy, so I would lose my accent, to lose my accent.
Mhm.
Um, and so now, if you talk to me and you speak to my brother has a very heavy Spanish accent,
Mhm.
and I don't. And it makes me sad sometimes. Um, but I'm very proud of like my culture, my heritage, right? So like it's funny because people will argue with me about race and ethnicity. Like, what's your race? What's your ethnicity? I'm like Puerto Rican, right? Like
Mhm. Mhm.
we've had this conversation, like
Yeah.
ethnicity is like where you're from, Puerto Rico, right? Your
Mhm.
race is based on your physical features,
Right.
right? And so if you put me next to like my brothers, I am on my birth certificate, it says I'm white. For my brother, it says he's black,
Mhm.
right? Like I have two brothers who say they're on their birth certificates, they're black. I am white on my birth. We're like, uh,
Mhm.
is based on physical characteristics. And so when I think that being able to stand up and tell people like, be proud of where you're from, right? Because it's
Mhm.
part of your culture and that's what you bring in,
Yeah.
right? That's part of who you are as a person. And so I have a sister, Leah,
Mhm.
and Leah is half Irish.
Okay.
She's from a separate, different mother. Um, and I feel bad because she's like, she tells me all the time, she's like, I look like a white girl. And she's like, I feel awkward telling people I'm Puerto Rican
Mm.
because of the way I look.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's hard, right? Because it's almost like you have to walk a fine line with your identity.
Mhm.
So I think if you can embrace who you are, from an identity perspective and be comfortable with, like I'm very proud to be Puerto Rican, but then again, I thought everyone in the world was Puerto Rican for a long time, right? Like I didn't know any better. I didn't know any different. There's no there's not a lot of diversity in Puerto Rico. Like there's diversity in color, like of skin,
Yep.
but you know, growing up, that was about it because I grew up in the center of the island.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I think that, if you can, and it's a double-edged sword, I'm just going to say this because code switching is a thing, and I have had the anxiety and stress over code switching where you have to kind of fit into like a specific mold in order for people to hear you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think that bringing in part of your background is super important because it's who you are, it's your perspectives. And I think that bringing in those diverse perspectives creates greater, richer engagements within organizations.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So let's switch gears a little bit. I know you've got lots of advice, and I would love to hear a little bit of your advice. What would you say to young professionals from underrepresented populations as they're hitting these glass ceilings while they're aspiring to be leaders? And I know you and I talked a lot about the glass ceilings, so maybe you can dive into that a little to share with the listener. What do we mean when we say glass ceilings?
Yeah. So, whether people know or do not know, affirmative action was abolished in 2023,
Mhm.
which meant that companies began uh, breaking down their DEI initiatives, right? Like completely did away with them.
Right.
Um, and college applications, like there's a reduction in like diversity at colleges. It's being like Harvard was hit hard, MIT was hit hard, like a lot of these colleges that where affirmative action was helping them to, really diversify, that's like gone away
Hmm.
because now employers aren't allowed to have there's legal implications to having programs that focus on creating opportunities for specific racial groups or groups, underrepresented groups. And so as a new majority, because we're not minorities, right? As the new majority, we need to create our own space. And I don't mean by like creating like affinity groups where you group with other people of your same culture, whatever. I
Hmm.
mean, bringing, like, talk about like, the seat at the table. Like everyone's always like, make sure you get your seat at the table. I'm like, bring your own damn chair,
I love that. Yeah.
right? Bring your own damn chair to the table and be like, excuse me, pardon me, and if they don't make space for you at the table, that's probably not an organization that's going to make space for you, period. And so maybe you just take your chair and you're like, I didn't want to sit with you anyway, and you go to another company,
Hmm.
or to another group, and you bring your chair with you, right? And don't wait for someone to give you a seat at the table
Right.
because they're not going to do it,
Yeah.
right? You have to put your own seat. You need to bring your own seat now and be like, and it's uncomfortable, right?
Right.
Because you
Yeah.
got to walk in with a chip on your shoulder and be like, no, I'm going to sit right here. Thank you very much.
Right.
Right. Um,
Yeah.
and I think it feels like very mean girlish. Like you can't sit with us. Right. Um,
Yeah.
fetch isn't a thing. Um, so yeah, so like, stop waiting. You can't wait for someone to give you a seat at the table. You need to bring your own seat, and it needs to be who you are, your brand that you want to bring to it, and the value that you bring,
Mhm.
right? Don't wait for someone to tell you, oh, okay, you can show us your value now.
Right. Because that time may never come. Yeah.
Will never come.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. So on the flip side of that, because I think there's a lot of allies out there, or at least folks that want to be allies, but maybe aren't quite sure how to do that. What advice would you give to the allies of these young professionals in an effort to support them as they're hitting these glass ceilings, as they're pulling up their own chair to have a seat at the table?
I would say as an ally, the best thing you can do is be a sponsor, right? Allyship is good, mentorship is great, sponsorship is where it's at. And a lot of people don't know the difference.
Mm-hmm.
So ally just means like, I'm here with you, right? I will walk with you. All right. That's good at all.
Yeah.
Mentorship is like, tell me what you're trying to achieve, and I will give you some tips on like, best practices. I'm not going to do, a sponsor is someone who knows your strengths and knows what you bring to the table and talks about you positively
Mm-hmm.
when you're not in the room.
Yeah.
They create opportunities for you. They will say, if an opportunity comes up, they'll be like, hey, like Sarah Hempel from Blanchard, she would be great for this. And I really encourage you to look at her, and this is why she's done this, right? So, me as a person of influence, I
Mm-hmm.
have the ability to influence others in their decisions for when they're looking to like promote someone, looking for
Mm-hmm.
someone for a gig. As a sponsor, um, you have the opportunity to create opportunities. Being a mentor is great, right? Mentors, everyone needs mentorship. We need mentors, but we need more sponsors. We
Right.
need more people that will talk and lift up, the new majority and say, like, I've worked with this person, give us opportunities, right? Like,
Yeah.
work with us. And be able to say, like, I know this person would be great for X. I really highly encourage you to look for it. Let me make a connection. Let me connect you to, they're not telling you, let me connect you with this person, but they're telling that leader, let me connect you with this rock star over here,
Yeah.
right? I in my career, I've had a few sponsors who have been amazing. I
Yeah.
still have sponsors to this day. I also have mentors. I have several mentors, right? And having both is like having a psychiatrist and having a therapist, right?
Yeah.
I use them both.
Right.
So,
Yeah. I love that. Okay, we're gonna kick over to like this little lightning round. I've got four more questions
okay.
for you, and we'll just like maybe 20, 30 seconds on each one.
Yes.
So how do you bring light to situations for others by sharing about your heritage and your journey?
How do I bring light to others? I think it's by sharing like how proud I am, right? Like
Mhm.
never talking about like, oh, well, I can't do this because, I don't think they're gonna let me. It's like, no, like I'm doing this because I can, and I'm gonna be bold so I can try to pave a way for all of us.
Yeah. And I think showing the success that you've had in doing that too is a way that you bring light. Like it is doable. Look, I've done it.
Yeah.
um, what unique perspectives do you bring to your leadership role specifically as a Hispanic woman in tech from Puerto Rico?
So my mom would say the chancla,
And
right? My mom would say, we bring the chancla. But
love it.
that's not what I bring. I would say that the ability to recognize diverse perspectives and understand that there are other perspectives beyond mine,
Hmm.
right? Because you speak multiple languages. I grew up in Puerto Rico. Um, I came to the States and was culture shock. Having that understanding that people come from different places
Hmm.
and they bring rich ideas and different perspectives based on their cultural background and their heritage. And that heritage could even be stuff that even if they grew up here, right? Someone from Louisiana is going to have a different perspective than someone from California, than someone from Minnesota. So those diverse perspectives and bringing them in are really important.
Hmm. Okay, can you describe a challenging experience that you faced in your career related to your heritage or cultural identity, and how did you overcome that?
Oh yeah. Early on, uh, being a Latina woman in tech, I was always the only female on a tech team.
Hmm.
And so my Gmail handle is MCPR Girl, which stands for Microsoft Certified Puerto Rican Girl, that the guys on my first team gave me. Uh, because I was a systems engineer,
Hmm.
Microsoft certified, and that was like once I built trust with them and they realized that I could do the deed, that's what that was kind of the handle they gave me. And I have it to this day. I've had it for 20 years. Um, and I think the most challenging is that, like, being the only female Latina on a tech team, with guys who, I remember my first job, my first gig, it wasn't my first, my second. I was on an all-male team in a data center, and the guys, I walked in and they were like, what the hell, right? And
Yeah.
they're like, oh, you can sit back there and you can do your nails or read a magazine or whatever. We'll take care of, like, I was like, excuse me? Excuse me? And they're like, oh, so you know where the good like Spanish coffee is. It's like, what do I look like?
Right.
Right? Um, I encountered that a lot. Like, I've been called names, referred to as names because I think it's okay. It's like, oh, the little spick in the corner. That's crazy to me, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I've always spoken up. I've always shut people down. I never cower away because, you have to have thick skin too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you can't let it like fester. You have to grow that thick skin.
Right. Okay. Wow. You've had definitely had your share of challenging experiences, but I love how you faced them all and you're still coming out ahead.
Yeah, I'm still winning.
Yeah, you're winning. So this last question kind of goes along with that because what I see in you on social media, talking with you here in this interview is authenticity. You are hands down one of the most authentic people I have met. So how does authenticity play into your leadership style and how do you encourage it in others? Because it's not always easy to just like be yourself.
Yeah, I think for me, it's always like, I'm really bad at acting and I don't know how to be anyone else. And like, if I tried, the real, like, Myra slips out because she has a potty mouth and you know what I mean? Like, she's a little rough around the edges, um and talking about myself in third person is weird. But um I say, like, and I think this is part of the problem is that they always tell us, you need to bring your whole self to work. And that's um because, especially if you're a minority, they don't want us to bring our whole selves to the job, right? They want us to bring the self that everyone's comfortable with to the job.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's recognizing that and understanding what that means.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, because, you don't want the Myra the real Myra, right? And just understanding how to balance that. And it does, authenticity, just because you're not bringing your whole self doesn't mean that you're not being authentic,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think it's being able to separate your personal life from your work life,
Mm-hmm.
and understand that you are authentic in your work life, right? And that can be like, I'm no nonsense. I am a little rough. I do have my quirks. Whereas I also, and this is going to sound so bad, like, I do not, the people I work with, in corporate, I know that they're not my best friend,
Mm-hmm.
right? Everyone's there. And so I try not to take things personal and just, like, this is me. I will stand up for anyone that I see an injustice is being done on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I will, I'll take one for the team, but that's just because I'm not afraid to lose, right? I'm not afraid to be put out, and I know that people have a lot more to lose than I do
Mm-hmm.
in instances. So,
I really like how you talked about your whole self versus um not versus but like and being able to be authentic by bringing
mhm,
your work self, that separation of work versus personal, because I think a lot of times when I hear or think about authenticity I think about like all the way around you have to be yourself and you have to bring your whole self in, and I like that distinction that you made, that you can be authentic in your
mhm,
workspace and you can be authentic in your personal space and those two can coexist. So
yeah, and it's a fine line, right?
yeah,
There's some intermingling, but
for
you
sure.
know, you don't bring your personal life to work, and you shouldn't bring your work to your personal life.
Right. Hopefully. Yes. Yes. Oh, awesome. Well, as we wrap up today's recording here, I just want to say thank you, Myra. It was really a pleasure to have you on Leadership Unfiltered, to get to dive into Hispanic Heritage Month. And thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you. This is fun.
Yeah. And thank you to everyone.
Having me, Sarah.
Yes. Oh, you're so welcome. Well, thank you to everyone else for joining in and listening and sharing this time with us. And until next time, join us in the Blanchard community as we unpack more conversations around leadership. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.